Now that we've talked about the economics of the market-based view of competitive agility, we can see that there's really 6 fundamental stages that occur on the road between that dystopian waterfall that salesmen love to terrify us with into the utopia that they promise us. That starts with Big Bang Waterfall, moves you into stage gate control, on into cost center agility, small solutions like Scrum or Kanban individually, then continuous delivery, hypothesis-driven design and development, and finally, a culture of innovation. Now, you don't need to be any one of these, but most companies do move through this progression as they make the socioeconomic changes necessary as leaders to attain to that utopia that they've been promised. Let's discuss them one by one. In a slow-moving economic market, Big Bang Waterfall makes perfect sense. Taking your time to appropriately plan before taking on the expenses of a team that will develop what you've designed is a really smart way to control costs. However, as signaling increases and the pace of technological innovation increases, the only way to keep up is to start checking for signals more rapidly and responding to them more rapidly. And you can't do that if you don't have a team readily available with enough slack in the value stream to respond directly to market forces. As you begin delivering multiple projects, stage gate control is an important evolution in the economics of managing a digital product value stream. What it does is add a sense of cost of delay, even if it's just the cost of the project managers, who represent the overhead of each project. You don't want projects to last inevitably. You don't want scope to increase unchecked, because it's going to cost you more no matter what. So you plan a little harder and you hesitate at those stage gates. The other thing that it does, typically, is control work in progress. Work in progress, unlike in Kanban, gets controlled in stage gate control with the funding horizon. If you can only fund up to a certain number of quarters or years through the stage gate system, then the amount of work in progress for any given system is also held in check. Once a company realizes that it can no longer effectively respond to market signals unless you're continuously investing in digital and technical product innovation, at that point it becomes clear that the stage gate system isn't sufficient. We actually need to keep multiple things in progress and keep them in check in a cohesive way. Now, the longer that you do this within the context of something like Kanban or Scrum on a team-by-team basis, the more you notice that there is a benefit to understanding the cost of delay. There is also a benefit in controlling work in progress directly, either through time boxes, like you do in Scrum, or directly with work in progress constraints, like you do in Kanban. This is an important step towards a culture of innovation, but in many organizations, it just isn't sufficient. To get there, we need to go through the last few stages. A deeper look at the economics behind cost center agility reveal an important truth. In most enterprises, when you have small pockets of cost center agility in flight, they're responding faster, but they're not responding faster to market signals. They're responding faster to internal signals. They may be doing manual testing more quickly. They are definitely checking with a product owner and their stakeholders on a more frequent basis. And they probably even release more often in addition to their continuous investment and planning mechanisms. However, until they're actually responding directly to market signals so the consumer has a real voice to the people that are in the trenches building the product, the culture of innovation can never be reached. There's too many steps in the value stream before responsiveness to the signal of the market can occur. For that, we start investing in continuous delivery and DevOps and other related things, because we realize that we, on a technology or a product side, really aren't protected just by responding more quickly to the signals from business and stakeholders. Instead, we need to also reduce our transaction costs. So if they're wrong and they change their mind, we're protected and we can very quickly pivot to serve their needs further. Again, realize that this is just supporting responsiveness internally to internal signals. It doesn't quite yet help us get to the culture of innovation. Once our investment in continuous delivery reduces transaction costs and the optimum batch size far, far, far smaller than when we started at Bang Waterfall, at that point, responsiveness to signals from the business isn't really sufficient to continue innovating. Ideally, it's the business that realizes this and begins equipping the entire product system with a separate way of checking signals in the form of product metrics. At that point, we're able to use something called hypothesis-driven design and planning. What that means is, variable by variable, we need to state a pain or a business case for what we want to accomplish, find out what a reasonable, falsifiable hypothesis is, and then run experiments on it, validating the results. In this way, the culture of innovation can begin to emerge organically. A system that has trust built in is possible. Before this, it's too easy to blame the product teams or the development division for the failures. Once you move to a hypothesis-driven mechanism of experimentation, it's the experiment that fails, and you keep iterating on it until the right variables get the traction in the market that you want based upon the signals you've identified. Once continuous delivery has lowered our batch size and our transaction costs extremely significantly so that we can pivot easily no matter what, even within a large enterprise, and hypothesis-driven planning and design has made it so that the experiments fail, and we're listening directly to market signals through the use of really strong metrics that we believe are a leading indication of trailing success. At that point, we can finally reach a culture of innovation. And what do we mean by that? We mean that several systems, multiple value streams, have this system of trust, this ability to know that you can experiment on small, distributed projects in a decentralized way, in a cohesive manner with the core ideology and strategy of the organization, and be rewarded, whether you succeed or fail, because the signal that you're really checking for is information. If the experiment fails, you've learned something and you knew it ahead of time what you were going to learn, which is a completely different culture than you had in Bang Waterfall, where you didn't know what the economies of scale were, you had no concept of holding costs, and you really didn't know how to manage a digital value stream.